Hey there folks, so welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art and culture, and this is Billboard Breakdown. Now for this episode of Billboard Breakdown, we have a much more chaotic week on the pop charts than last time. Roughly the same number of debuts and re-entries, but the real chaos was courtesy of a chart reshuffling, one that's fairly typical around this time of year, in order to usher out a lot of the old and bring in the new. Now this led to all sorts of strangeness, including our highest debut song from a movie that came out a few weeks ago from an Academy Award winner and overall pretty damn awesome human being Jennifer Lawrence, on a song that she hates. Now, before we get to that conversation, let's start with our top 10, where there's actually a fair bit of change here. Not really in the top 5. Blank Space by Taylor Swift holds on to number 1 easily, with even more radio airplay dominance. All About That Bass by Meghan Trainor is somehow barely holding on, only thanks to radio airplay at number 2, but even that's decreasing fast against the rise of Take Me to Church by Hozier at number 3, which is crushing streaming and slowly getting some traction on the radio. Coming in at number 4 is Shake It Off by Taylor Swift, which is somewhat dropping across the board, but isn't quite dropping as fast as Animals by Maroon 5 at number 5, where they swap positions for this week. Now it's in the next 5 where we get some real movement. Coming in at number 6 is our highest arrival to the top 10, Selena Gomez's The Heart Wants What It Wants, arriving partially off the back of her first greatest hits album, For You, which has gotten her huge streaming and respectable sales, and is probably Selena Gomez's best single since 2011. I might not be a fan of the choppy piece at the end of the chorus and the lyrics that are a little bit clumsy with all the fairy tale references and a little bit juvenile, but the more restrained production and Selena's performance reminds me of why I used to be a fan of hers until Stars Dance flushed all of that down the toilet. Next up is Sam Smith, staying solid at number 7 with I'm Not the Only One, thanks to pretty much gains all across the board. And then we have our second new arrival on the charts at number 8 with Uptown Funk from Mark Ronson and Bruno Mars, which has simultaneously been getting better and worse every single time I listen to it. I love the bass, the slick guitar groove, and punchy drums, yet the synth tones just feel a little off to me, and that crescendo that leads into the sax just doesn't work as well as it should. The lyrics are swollen with arrogance too, but yet Bruno Mars and Mark Ronson make them surprisingly convincing. I think I might have to deliberate on this one just a little bit more, but thankfully I know exactly how I feel about the next 2 tracks. Habits Stay High by Tove Lo tumbles down to number 9, having peaked in airplay despite some respectable streams, and Love Me Harder by Ariana Grande featuring The Weeknd dipped slightly to number 10, if only because sales were slightly underway, being held up by massive streaming and some stronger airplay gains. Oh, and both songs are awesome in case you ever need any more reminders. Now on to our major changes, and let's start with the major dropouts. All of Me by John Legend, Bailando by Enrique Iglesias, Boom Clap by Charlie XCX, although I expect to see that return with her album dropping in less than a few weeks and getting some pretty strong reviews. Happy by Pharrell, Sunshine and Whiskey by Frankie Ballard, and Dirt by Flora George Line. All these songs are gone. Unsurprisingly, considering all these songs had their 20 weeks or more last year, and they're getting shuffled out for the new year. And yet our losers this week are more songs that haven't caught on as strongly and are getting slowly rotated out as the end of 2014 regardless. Gwen Stefani's Baby Don't Lie shows the No Doubt frontwoman's second comeback, losing all steam to number 97. Kendrick Lamar's All Attempt at a Self-Esteem Anthem, I, dropping to number 80. The absolutely gutless and terrible Stolen Dance by Milky Chance dropping to 51 and not leaving the chart fast enough. And the Chris Brown Usher collaboration that gave Rick Ross his only real hit of this year, dropping number 48. But it wasn't just songs that wore out their welcome either. Nicki Minaj and Skylar Grey's underwhelming debut from last week, Bed of Lies, drops to number 81. Although I suspect the second that Nicki releases a video for it around her album's release, it'll probably regain some traction. Ghost by Ella Henderson unfortunately loses some steam to number 67. Pentatonix's hot debut last week, Mary Did You Know, drops to number 60. And Carrie Underwood's Finding Jesus and her inner Christina Aguilera on Something in the Water dips down to number 52. Most perplexingly for me was One Direction's Steal My Girl, dropping number 45, propped up mostly, well, by streaming. Maybe the listeners finally started cluing at how much those opening piano chords are reminiscent of Faithfully by Journey. Just saying. And now on for our gainers. We got a whole new selection of songs here that I talked about last week, gaining some major traction, whether we wanted them to or not. I mean, I'm happy that I Don't Mind by Usher and especially Night Changes by One Direction went up from 54 and 31 respectively, but that's really the only changes I'm all that happy about. Elsewhere, Booty by Jennifer Lopez and Iggy Azalea goes to number 75. I Bet My Life by Imagine Dragons goes up to 56. And because mainstream hip-hop has no real direction and has chosen to rely on the decision-making skills of the internet, Coco by OT Genasis somehow rises to number 38, entirely thanks to streaming. Okay, internet, this was fun, we all had a good laugh here, but I don't want a badly made trap song about cocaine to become the next big thing, okay? Just let's get that clear. But thankfully, we got a couple better songs to round things out, from some solid gains for Yellow Flicker Beat from Lorde, and Pitbull getting a major boost thanks to his most recent album for Firewall, which is one of the better songs off that release and features him channeling his inner Rum DMC. Hell, I'll take more of that any day. We'll get back to Pitbull in a little bit, but now it's time for our recurring entries. You know, I think I get why this song wasn't the Meghan Trainor song that actually caught fire, cause it's kind of insufferable. Sure, the retro doo-wop vibe isn't bad, and I like the key change, but maybe it's Trainor's self-satisfied delivery, the way she wants to get her own way, and the increasingly desperate way that she expects said future husband to accommodate her brand of craziness and just buy her the ring already. And even with that, said future husband can count on not seeing his family more than hers. Normally, these songs go to supplement the demands with what she's gonna bring to the table, and yet this song is too concerned with preserving its innocent nature to actually include the appropriate rhyme for "I'll be sleeping on the left side of the bed, open doors for me, and you might get some kisses." Okay, yeah, this is a wish fulfillment fantasy, and as such, I really can't get mad at it, but doesn't mean I have to like it either. Oh wow, this song should be a lot better than it is. To me, Neo has always been stuck a half step behind Usher, and it's a little amazing that a week after I Don't Mind debuts on the charts, Neo is here with his own forgettable Juicy J verse. It's a shame that it's a fair bit worse too, most thanks to the instrumentation with the horn-sounding synthesizer obnoxiously blaring to start up against this pitched-up vocal that sounds a lot like a baby. Now thankfully the song does get a little bit smoother with some of the synthesizers, and Neo is still a slick performer, but with a little bit less going on in the lyrics, which just aren't as smooth or as detailed. It's just not as good as I Don't Mind, at least for me. Oh, it's nice to see the Killers back with another hit from Battleborn. Wait a minute, this isn't the Killers? Okay, you know what, I'm just being snarky here, but come on, from the U2's guitar flutter to the more chugging riffs, the lead singer belting at the top of his lungs with a voice that belongs somewhere between Brandon Flowers and Josh Ramsey, I'm inclined to brand the Walk the Moon Killers light and just move on. And you know what, even lyrically, it does fall a little bit into that mold. Say what you will about all the real problems that Battleborn by the Killers had back in 2012, at least the Killers cranked the lyrical subject matter up to the broad strokes that worked with the bombast, whereas Walk the Moon isn't quite as ambitious with the song. And yet, given this is the pop charts and there's no sign of another Killers album anytime soon, and I did like that chiptune keyboard line on the bridge, you know what? It works pretty damn well for it is. It's a fun song. I'm giving it a pass. It's coming to fucking mind. Ugh, man, this song is underwhelming. I wasn't a fan of the last time Sia collaborated with Eminem on the deluxe edition of the Marshall Mathers LP 2, and her new collaboration for Shady 15 is not a lot better. The verses are quite literally about how Eminem is having writer's block and not being able to break out of his established mold with production pulled straight out of Recovery. It doesn't develop any real energy until he starts really spitting on the second verse, but even that just feels recycled. Granted, Eminem's not at his best, is still above average, but I don't get why he's throwing money behind this when the title track or Vegas were just so much better songs. In other words, I'd probably skip it. Okay, believe it or not, this is one of the few songs from Beyonce's self-titled album that I actually liked, especially with the intro from Chimada Ngozi Adichie that actually did a lot for amping up some of the feminist themes that tried to underscore a lot of that self-titled album. This remix with Nicki Minaj aims to do a whole lot less, and unsurprisingly, it's a lot less listenable, and unsurprisingly, it charted a lot higher too. At this point, looking for any sort of feminist subtext is pretty much pointless, because Nicki Minaj makes it very clear in her verse that this song is about dissing other women who aren't as rich or as bad as them. And you know what? Okay, fine. The song is more shallow brag rap that they try to infuse with some populism and some raw power from Beyonce, especially with Nicki going off in her verse. I can give all that a pass. If it wasn't for the production, between the pitch shifting, how everything sounds like it's swallowed in copious reverb, especially the horns for no good reason, the chorus never gaining any real dramatic swell, a complete lack of consistent momentum, the abuse of autotune, and that shrill grating synth over Nicki's final bars that just drops out altogether, makes the song feel unfinished. Look, I know I can't expect much from a remix here, but I take the original any day over this. Skip this song. And now that I pissed off a considerable chunk of my audience, let's move on to our newest arrivals, starting with Time of Our Lives by Pitbull and Ne-Yo. You know, I already talked a bit about this song when I reviewed Globalization last week, which is the reason that this song is charting. But overall, you know what? It's one of the more likable songs on this album. I still don't understand why Ne-Yo always sounds so inert on Pitbull's tracks, but it fits a little bit better than on Give Me Everything, because this song is about ignoring real problems in your life to find a moment of solace in the party. So there is that element of melancholy that's expected. And to Pitbull's credit, while his verses are as sleazy and ridiculous and kind of forgettable as ever, I liked how they stripped things back for the bridge, where he actually showed a little bit of weariness and sympathy for his audience, because he's been there, and it's a surprisingly human moment for him. Combined with one of his more restrained beats and pretty good melody, I'd argue this song works. I'll take it. Number 93, Sledgehammer by Fifth Harmony. We're now at our second single from that long-delayed debut album from Fifth Harmony, after Boss failed to impress anyone with one of the cheapest sounding horn sounds, an abusive percussion, and ridiculous assertions of dominance with some of the dumbest lyrics that I've heard in a while. Thankfully, Sledgehammer is a little bit better, if only because it's bland over top of being just bad. Most of this is a factor of bottom-shelf Psycho Records production that abuses percussion over everything else, and that terrible pitch-shifted voice on the drum break in the chorus. But you know what? The girls do a decent enough job selling the track, and the lyrics, they aren't bad. But if Ghost by Ella Henderson can't catch fire here at being a better song, I don't see Sledgehammer doing much better, and stealing a title from an iconic Peter Gabriel song does not help your case. I'm sorry. Number 89, I See You by Luke Bryan. Of all the songs that showed up on this list, this is the one that surprises me the most. I mean, seriously? We're this desperate for Luke Bryan's singles on the charts that we need to pull a deep cut from a year and a half ago? And it's not exactly a pleasant listen either. The guitar tone is really sour, the pseudo-rap cadence Luke Bryan does not sound good with his lower voice, the backing vocals are just pitched way too high. But then again, this is a song that's intended to sound bitter and angry, an inability to get over being dumped and friends who are trying to help, and you know what? It's just not working for him that night. Believe me, we've all been there. And at the same time, though, the sourness isn't quite hitting the right note for me. It's more pissy than torn up or legitimately angry, and it's written in a way that comes across as a little bit too young for Luke Bryan's older voice. Overall, you know what? It's not a bad song, but I get the feeling it could have been better. Number 84, I Walk the Line by Craig Wayne Boyd. Our voice cover of this week is of one of Johnny Cash's more well-known hits. And you know what? I actually like this cover a fair bit, mostly because it's played in a slightly different way than Johnny Cash did. He kept a rollicking tone that had a certain curt efficiency to it, whereas Craig Wayne Boyd lowers the tempo, adds a bit of strings, has much more expressive delivery and presentation, and his rougher, incredibly powerful vocals and a lot more sincerity does a lot for his presentation. Traditionalists will probably think that covering Johnny Cash at all is a travesty, especially like this, but you know what? I like Boyd's interpretation. It works for me. Number 71, I Lived by OneRepublic. I swear I lived. I knew this was too good to last. I mean, I had hoped with Counting Stars and Love Runs Out that OneRepublic were taking their brand in a darker, rougher direction, and while you get some of that and some of the production texture of I Lived, this is very much in the vein of older, rather inoffensive OneRepublic singles that aren't bad, but they're nothing special either, especially in the lyrical department, which is standard YOLO pablum that isn't all that interesting. Now, instrumentally, I like some of the punchier drums, but that's offset by some of the backing vocals that don't quite work as well as they should, especially over the bridge. In other words, the song's fine, it's okay, but honestly, it's nothing special. Number 65, Santa Tell Me by Ariana Grande. I really shouldn't be surprised that Ariana Grande is releasing a Christmas song. Like her idol Mariah Carey's landmark Christmas song, All I Want for Christmas Is You, it's pretty lightweight and basic in terms of its production and composition, although the strings are pretty solid, pretty nice, but Ariana's lyrics are, well, more complicated. The story is, Ariana is reaching out to Santa, if he's really there, to have him confirm whether or not her new boyfriend is going to stick around into the new year so that she knows if it's okay to have sex with him. So let me reiterate that. She's disrupting Santa's valuable time delivering presents all around the world to ask for sexual advice. And the tone of the song is all over the place too. The lyrics are written fairly straight, and yet Ariana's delivery is so girlish, and when the full gospel choir comes in to sing the chorus about giving it all away. Okay, look, I don't think the song works, but on some level, I want this to be huge, like All I Want for Christmas Is You, because this song is absolutely hysterical for me. Ho, 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 indeed. Number 18, 7-Eleven by Beyonce. Okay, no, not like that. I didn't mean ho, 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 like, oh, for God's sakes. Am I the only one who remembers what music Beyonce used to make? I didn't love her first decade or so of material with Destiny's Child or going solo, but in the past year, her brand of songwriting has gotten dumber, sloppier, and nowhere near as dignified as it used to be. One of the things I liked about her. When a Rihanna-Shakira collaboration that played like a telenovela melodrama has more dignity and class than this, you've got problems. And you know what? It's not that I've got issues with Beyonce showing off her more ignorant side for a dumb dance song, for a deluxe reissue song that was clearly written in less time than it took for me to put together this episode. But Beyonce can make better music than this because she's just not that good at playing up her ratchet side. She's got raw intensity on the track, sure, but that's about it. Because the beat is generic reverb swallowed trap with pitch shifted vocals laid over the 808s, sloppy pitch correction, and only fragments of a good melody line that comes up at the very end. And lyrics that alternate between being overdone bragging we've heard before and completely forgettable dance calls. With this and Flawless, I don't get why Beyonce feels that she needs to make this kind of music. Nothing wrong with a good party song, okay, but it doesn't have the ambition of Flawless. It's dumb, it's forgettable, and will likely be destined for the soundtrack of plenty of world star videos. Next. And finally, number 12, The Hanging Tree by James Newton Howard featuring Jennifer Lawrence.
They strung up a man, they say, who murdered 3.
So okay, I'll be honest, the weekend when Mockingjay Part 1 was released, I went to go see Dear White People instead. All of you should go out and see it because it's awesome and all the more relevant today. The Hanging Tree, co-written by Susan Collins, the author, and the Lumineers, it shows up in the movie as a dark little poem that obviously telegraphs parts of the plot and some of its imagery. And musically, it's very reminiscent of Hoist the Colors in the Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. It's apparently a song that Jennifer Lawrence absolutely hated performing in any capacity, and you know what, you can kind of tell in her delivery, with her tempo increasing with every half-murmured line, that she seems like she just wants to get out of there and get it over with. But apparently audiences all over the world loved it, and it's charting all over the world. And you know what? While I don't see it becoming the next Let It Go, or really lasting all that long on the charts, The Hanging Tree is a decent enough song, at least when it stays as a simple, dark, downbeat folk track. I like when the chorus came in behind Lawrence, to be sure, but the heavier classical instrumentation that eventually swallows up both of them with their traditional symphonic choirs and all the horns made it leave a lot less impact than it really should. Now, you could argue it's unintentionally reminiscent of the film's themes, swallowing up that solitary voice of the figurehead into the heavier, blunter message of the cause that doesn't have the words behind it, but I get the feeling that transition wasn't symbolically intentional for the music, and as such, it doesn't quite hit me in the same way that some similar instrumentation has in the past. For a counterexample, do you all remember that unique flute melody or the mournful violin piece that Howard Shore wrote for the Hobbits and Rohan in Lord of the Rings? Those pieces worked so well because they didn't feel the need to drive the melodic motif into the ground by amping up that symphonic element. And one of the most powerful moments in the film, some of the best, are from those melodies just being played very simply with their original instrumentation, which just carried so much more punch with me. Still, overall good song, and I'll rant about film scores another day. Overall, we've got another mixed bag in this week of turmoil, and honestly, a little bit weaker than last week. For the worst songs of this week, it's a toss-up between 7-Eleven and Flawless, one a remix that took a dump on the original, and the other one that's pretty much irredeemable from the start. For the best, you know what? Might be killer's light, but I'll take it. Shut Up and Dance by Walk the Moon, with the runners-up being either The Hanging Tree or Time of Our Lives, depending on how I'm feeling that day. Let's just hope things improve next week, but until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.